Thank you for the invitation. So in this talk, I will be talking about graphical models. So I prepared the slides in a slightly tutorial way, so it's such that if one is getting interested, like if one is interested, they can have a broader sense of what are things are being currently done in this area. And I will also talk about my research in the later part. So let's start what we have now. So, so graphical models are pretty useful models, and it's a very simple mathematical structure to represent knowledge. A graphical model consists of three things: the set of nodes, though nodes could be entities or variables; set of edges, edges capture the whether they are those two variables or entities are related or not. If they are related, then they are non-zero. If they are non-related, then they are zero. If other thing is weights. So weight captures how strongly they are related. If they are related strongly, then the higher weight value will be there. If they are related not strongly, then the weight value will be less. Next notion is graph signal or graph structured data. So graph signal or graph structured data is something the signals can be understood as something defined over a graph, or when we say defined over a graph, it simply means that signal defined over a node. So each variable will be associated with a node, and the observations corresponding to that variable will be entries for that particular node. So this might be little. Let's see where these kind of data sets are actually. Okay, fine, perfect. Okay, so I guess till here everyone has followed. So here I have given a simple definition of a graph structure, which consists of nodes, set of nodes. Those are entities, set of edges. Those capture the connections, and weights, which captures the strength of connection. Next, I have defined what do we mean by graph signals. So signals defined over graph, where each variable can be associated with a node, and the observations corresponding to one variable or one node are corresponding to that particular node. So these are some examples. So one of the example is a or the road network, where nodes can be understood as a road junctions, edges could be understood as road connections, and signals are the graph signals that we have discussed before, that could be traffic congestion and junctions. So based on these properties and these attributes, we want to decide something for this particular network. So this is an example. Another example is social network, where nodes are individuals. Edges could be friendships or preferences. We want to capture whether those two individuals are related with their friends, with the friendship behavior or their preferences. And signals could be like political view. And okay, so the edges are friendships and connections, and the signals could be like their likings or their preferences and something. Third example could be brain network, where nodes are brain regions. Edges are the structural connectivity between brain regions, and signals are signals dependent on blood oxygen level dependent signals. So these are few examples. Similarly, financial network, where nodes are country, edges are economic connections, and signals are volumes of trades and commodity exchange. So based on these properties, networks could be built for a variety of applications. Almost nowadays, graphs and graph-based methods are into like all the application domains. And the very popular image data is also a form of graph data, where nodes are pixels, edges are the spatial proximity between pixels, and signals are the pixel values. So graph-based data or graph data is not new. It was there, but now because of the complex data sets and irregular domain data sets, graph-based algorithms are getting huge popularity. And this is where this talk is positioned at. So there are two paradigms in graph-based research. First thing is where we use graph to do something. So the popular examples are semi and unsupervised learning, transductive learning, manifold regularization, graph neural networks, and label propagation. These are popular approaches for the machine learning. Next branch, which has recently emerged, which is graph signal processing. So this branch attempts to integrate the well-studied and well-tested signal processing algorithms within the graph domain, and this is also getting great success. Third application domain is network science, so where we use graph or network and And then their properties like small word network centrality, eigenvector centrality, and perform and study behavior of complex networks. So in this area where the network is given and we want to use that network to perform some tasks like embedding, extracting node features and labels. Another domain of research is where we do not have a graph. We want to first build a graph. So where there what is given, we have given nodes. So these are, suppose these each individuals correspond to one node, and based on their features, so his features are their preferences and buying pattern. We want to build a graph, something that how they are connected. So this is the second line of research where given data we want to learn a graph, and these two are interdependent. So in many cases the graph is not given so in fact most of the cases where a natural form of graph is not available, like in brain network or gene regulatory network, there the only we have some observations of data set, and then based on that data set we need to build a graph first. So this talk will be based on this. Our talk will be focusing on this particular aspect of graph-based research. We want to build graphs for a given data set. So this just summarizes what are the things we can do with graphs. So graphs are intuitive way of representing and visualizing the relationships. It also allows us to abstract out the independence relationship between two variables just by looking at the parametric form. So in many cases, graphs can serve as the final goal. Like the connectivity information itself is the final goal. We want to just check the interdependencies or dependencies between two variables, or it could be used as an intermediary tool, like in the case of uh, graph CNN network science graph signal processing application. So in both the cases, graphs play a very important role. It also offers a language through which different disciplines can seamlessly interact. And in fact, graph-based approaches with big data and machine learning are the driving force of current research frontiers. The applications of graphs are like high-dimensional probabilistic modeling, machine learning, networks, bioinformatics, and other things. And primarily, the graphical model study of graphical models are positioned at the intersection of these three sub-branches: statistics, graph theory, optimization, and engineering. In fact, probabilistic graph modeling of a graph is based at the marriage of statistics and graph theory, and then finally extracting the graph will require a huge amount of optimization. In fact, the most of the recent development what graph theory, like the graph domain has witnessed, is primarily due to the development of optimization algorithms, because the graph based methods are known from ages, but how to extract graph, how to build algorithms based on graph are actually facilitated by development and optimization. And engineering is something that in which domain we want to apply. If you want to apply in image, if you want to apply in computer vision. So primarily the study of graphical models are at the intersection of these four branches. So this talk is all about graph learning from data. So let's define formally what do we mean by graph learning from data. So graph learning from data is simply we want given a data matrix where we have n number of observations and p number of variables. So the number of nodes are p, and corresponding to each node we have n number of observations. So based on those observations, we want to build the connectivity pattern. So whether these two variables are dependent or not, that we want to build. So this is the whole setting of graph learning from data. Given a data matrix, we want to build a data structure of V, E, and W form, where V are the set of vertices that we already know. We want to figure out edges and the the strength of the connection. Okay, let's go next. So before we start formally doing graph learning, we should get accustomed with three popular matrices, which are primarily used in like representing graphs. So the first matrix is connectivity matrix. Suppose this is a graph we have. So connectivity matrix simply represents the connectivity pattern. So it will just encode 0 or 1. If they are connected, then it is 1. If they are not connected, then it is 0. Another matrix is called adjacency matrix. So it will denote the connectivity pattern along with the respective weight. So how strongly they are connected. And third matrix is the Laplacian matrix. So Laplacian matrix is a linear transformation of adjacency matrix. They both represent the same graph, but they both have different mathematical properties and spectral properties. And Laplacian matrix is a positive semi-definite matrix with all eigenvalues 0. Here we are only considering graph weights with positive values or non-zero values. negative values we are not considering. So in this case, Laplacian matrix or any graph weight will always have positive or non-zero, like a non-negative entry, sorry. So Laplacian matrix is positive semi-definite matrix. So it has a different applications and some mathematical flexibility. So these both matrices are widely popular to represent or analyze a graph matrix. Okay. So there are many models to build graphs from the data. So some are simple. So simple are like models which directly encode the pairwise dependencies. So these are simple and intuitive. Suppose we have given data sets corresponding to p variables. So I is one variable and j is one variable. So people build graph directly finding the sample correlation between two variables. So this is very simple, and this is also widely used, but they are not able to capture the global dynamics. They just capture the pairwise dependencies and make capture noise and else. Another thing is a similarity function based matrix. So statistically on principle, it is also similar to sample correlation based graph building, but they have a certain other flexibility. By tuning the value sigma, you can actually play on with the graph weights and the thing, but they also have the same problem that they may be prone to outliers and they only capture the pairwise dependencies. Sorry. So next model is, so these two models are simple, but they are not so effective. So what people have realized that we cannot just blindly, given the data set, we cannot just blindly compute the distances because they are based on distance computation, just pairwise distance computation. We cannot just like build graphs based on pairwise computation of distances. So we need to associate certain assumptions, or we need to have some more layers of hierarchy. So the thing, first model is a physically inspired model. So what they assume that so in a model based graph learning is something where the observed data is assumed to be as an outcome of certain function or certain operation. So first thing is a physically inspired model where it is assumed that the data what we have is actually an outcome of as a generative model, like a diffusion process on graphs or smooth signals defined over graphs. Next thing is probabilistic graphical models. So probabilistic graphical model simply says that the outcome of a data is corresponding to certain probabilistic distribution model. In that distribution model, the independence is inherently captured. So one example here is, suppose this is a graph, and in terms of independence, what it captures the Markovian independence. So PGM captures the conditional independence property. So the distribution model in which two variables are conditionally independent, then there will not be an edge between two vertices in the represented graph. So with this model, we actually capture the conditional independence of the two variables. So with this graph, I and j does not belong to E, it will imply and vice versa. Xi and Xj are conditionally independent of all the data sets given Xj. And so suppose 4 and 5 here is independent. If 4 and 5, there is no edge between 4 and 5, it implies that X4 and X5 is conditionally independent. Okay. So these are the three models. So our model, what we will be studying next, will be at the intersection of these two models, physically inspired models and probabilistic graphical models. So let's see. So for the building probabilistic graphical models, so exponential families of distributions are natural. They give a graph naturally. So the exponential family of distribution is a parametric family of distribution which can be represented in this form, where theta is the associated parameter, phi of x um, is a sufficient statistic. So the non-zero increase of the parameter actually captures the Markovian graph directly. So the examples are Gaussian Markov random field, Boltzmann machine, Ising model, Potts model, and maximum entropy model. All are special cases of exponential graphical model. Our focus will be on the Gaussian Markov random field. So Gaussian Markov random field can be typically described in this form. This is the Gaussian distribution. So in the Gaussian distribution, the in non-zero entries of theta, which is a precision matrix or the inverse covariance matrix, directly captures the graph, the Markovian graph. So the whole setting of learning a graph from a data under the probabilistic assumption will boil down to something estimating the precision matrix from the Gaussian distribution under this setting. Okay, So let's quickly go through the over history of the graph estimation or the precision matrix estimation. So the first approach was proposed by, am I audible? Like I just, my voice is fine, so
Yes, yes.
okay, fine. So the first approach came in 1972. So there they proposed that just by inverting the sample covariance matrix, you can so for, let's see what is sample covariance matrix. Given X, so which is coming from a Gaussian distribution, assumption that the theta is the underlying precision matrix, covariance matrix, and theta inverse is the inverse covariance matrix. So we can they propose directly to estimate the precision matrix by inverting the sample covariance matrix. So it makes sense, it worked, but it is not suitable for high dimensional data. So high dimensional data, because the S is non-invertible, so this approach cannot be used. So this was well understood in 1972 itself, but it took almost decades to actually come up with algorithm which actually tackle problems for high dimensional data. So in high dimensional data, we cannot invert it. And so the Menhushen and Bullman in 2006 proposed a regression-based method to solve an to infer theta. So what they are actually solving, they are looking at how xi is dependent on all the variables, and they are putting weight to the dependencies of xi and all the other variables, and they are also putting the sparsity constraints on the theta. They they build their approach on a regression model. Next, in same year, in 2008, two different group, Banerjee and Bullman, came up with a algorithm to solve a maximum likelihood estimation problem. In fact, we can formulate the graph learning problem for given under the Gaussian distribution as a maximum likelihood estimation of theta, and theta is a precision matrix. So, but for the high dimensional case, this was a difficult problem. So they developed a block coordinate descent based algorithm to solve this problem. So in 2008, and they first showed to the world that this problem can be solved for a high dimensional case. And since then, we have a kind of many, like thousands of papers coming every year in this particular area. And my paper is one of the 1,000 paper in this area. Let's see. So then there is again further extension, because people started realizing that just building a graph, and it has also, because of the advent of faster algorithms and easy to handle algorithm, people have started using it, and they observe that it is actually useful in a lot of application. So they come up with a more abstraction and more like specification on this model. So there are few more specifications. First thing is that, so here before in this setting, we just assume that theta here is a positive definite matrix. Okay, the entries of theta could be both positive and negative. So in this kind of a graph, what we are actually handling, we are handling both positive, the weights could be positive and negative both. While in many applications, people realize that we do not want negative weight. Like if we want to associate friendship, then in that case, negative weights do not matter, or we are not concerned about negative weights. So they posed additional constraint that okay, we want positive definite matrix for sure, but we want theta ij to be all negative. So when theta is all negative, that is the values of precision matrix, then the partial correlation will be all positive. So that means the graph that we will learn will have all positive weights. So in that case, we will only capture the positive weights. So there are advantages of it. So the advantage is something. So in this model, actually the MLE exists even for n greater than 2 samples. Earlier, for the previous setting, with unconstrained setting, the MLE, the maximum likelihood estimation, will only exist when the number of samples will be greater than the number of dimension. But for under this setting, you only require two or more than two samples. So this was a big jump in terms of handling high dimensional data set. And it is actually a very hit model in that sense. So if you assume this particular thing, the assumption that you have only non-negative and non-negative parts or non-negative precision matrix entries, then you may not need to have additional regularizer, that is a additional sparsity constraint, and that makes solving that problem, the optimization problem, really convenient. So that is the first abstraction, or like first specific. Later, people also realized that in many cases we have additional assumption, like in the most of the machine learning domain, or the machine learning applications, we have another constraint. Another constraint is theta is a positive semi-definite matrix. Theta, and along with it, all the negative in all the entries are actually negative of the theta, but they have an additional property that the diagonal value of the matrix theta is the linear combination of all the non-diagonal entries. So like this is called as a Laplacian constraint, positivity along with the Laplacian constraint. So in terms of the probabilistic regime, this is called a improper attractive GMRF model, and it has a lot of applications in, because it is also related to smoothness. It defines to smoothness of two signals or two variables, and smoothness is a very widely used property in graph signal processing and machine learning applications. So nowadays a lot of interests are coming for this particular model in so we have a lot. So our work will be focused on learning graphs with under this constraint, that we want additional Laplacian constraint, and we want all the graph metrics to be, all the graph weights to be positive. Let's see what are the example. What do we mean by smoothness of Laplacian smoothness over a signal? So smoothness simply means that if xi and xj are, if we suppose we have given some signals over different on the nodes of a graph. So by that, what we mean that if two nodes are connected, then the signals defined over these two nodes will have certain property. So that property is smoothness. So this operation F transpose, suppose F is the signals defined over one node. So F transpose LF, L is a Laplacian matrix, can be it can be also expressed as a something Wij Fi minus Fj square. So in statistical mechanics, this is also called the energy of a system, and low energy systems are stable than high energy systems. So so if the two signals, if signals are smooth, and if you build the graph properly, then the energy will be smooth. So we want to minimize this particular term. So that is why the Laplacian naturally comes into the picture. So this is a low energy system, and this is a high energy system. So low energy system will have less value. Okay, so this is something like importance of Laplacian matrix. So this is all the background that we had for graph and all the history. Now we will start. I will discuss what I have done for my work. So when we say that we want to learn a graph, so the setting here was given data structure, given some data, we want to build graph with that data. So given matrix, data matrix, we want to build graph. So there are a lot of methods, a lot of huge body of literature is there that builds graph from the data. But the one specific constraint, they are not able to actually enforce one very important property of a graph, that is structure. Eventually, we want to capture structure with the graph, like how well the two data sets are connected. But the existing method do not enforce structures on the learned graph. And what we mean by structures are something like multiple component graph. So different applications require different structure. If you want to design communication efficient architecture, then the regular graph is required structure. If you want to build kind of analyze social network, then modular graph is structured. Similarly, these structures are important. So in many applications, what we know that for certain applications, we know that this kind of graph structure will be useful. But if you want to learn graph with that structure, that was not possible. And why it is the case? Because structured graph, so we want something like this. So given graph, given data, we want to learn directly graph with certain structure. But the structured graph learning from data involves both estimation of structure, which is the connectivity pattern, like with the how they are connected, and also the weights. Okay, so the parameter estimation is well explored. We can do it via the maximum likelihood or other approach. But the structure is a combinatorial constraint. The connectivity is a combinatorial constraint, and satisfying both simultaneously is a little difficult. So in general, learning structured graph becomes NP hard and challenging. So what are the different approaches? There are a lot of papers, and most of the people, like all the works are actually approximate methods. So it started with Chow-Liu algorithm in 1968, and so he showed that if the underlying graph structure is a tree graph, then by learning the maximum likelihood estimation will be with maximum weight spanning tree will give you a tree structure. Similarly, there are for different structures, there were different specific papers, specific algorithms, but there was not a general, what you can say, the framework or general black box kind of thing which can lead you to a multiple graph learnings. So what we realized that there was important thing missing in existing work that have been overlooked. So a spectral graph theory, which is a well-studied branch of mathematics, where they associate the graph structure or the algebraic property, the combinatorial property of a graph, with the algebraic property of the graph matrices. So in this, in under that branch of mathematics, we can directly we can encode the structural property of a lot of important graph structures directly into the eigenvalues and eigenvectors of the graph matrices. So this was somehow this has also been utilized in some sense, but generic algorithm utilizing this particular thing was missing in the literature, and that is where we have captured upon. So let's see few examples. So suppose we want to build a multiple component graph. So multiple component graph is that a graph can be partitioned into three disjoint subsets, such that in each partition the nodes are connected among the same subset. So if you want to this information of multiple component in a graph can be directly looked from the eigenvalues of the Laplacian matrices. So suppose there are three components in the graph, then the first three eigenvalues of the corresponding Laplacian matrix will be 0. And that is one of the example. Next example is a bipartite graph. So the bipartite property, the graph is a bipartite structure, is directly encoded in the eigenvalues of the adjacency matrix. So we have seen that adjacency matrix and Laplacian matrices are both a linear transformation of each other. So yeah, so this is just suppose theta was a Laplacian matrix, A of theta represents adjacency matrix. So in that case, if a graph is bipartite, then the eigenvalues of that graph will have a symmetric eigenvalues. Like it will be symmetric along 0. So that is one-to-one information regarding the combinatorial property and the algebraic property. And combinatorial property is difficult to handle, while algebraic property is somehow well understood, and we can put it from an analytical form and solve it via some optimization problem. So these are two examples. There are many examples there, but these are very two popular. Okay. So this is what we wanted to utilize, and this is what we have utilized. So this is the setting. Setting is we have given observations, we compute the sample covariance matrix. We want to learn graph under this constraint. That this constraint is simply the theta ij is all non-negative, and the diagonal element of theta is a linear combination of the non-diagonal element theta. And we want to force certain constraints on the eigenvalues of theta, because we have understood that the eigenvalues of a lot of graph structure directly encode the structure of the graph. So let's see the first. So this is a general framework that we have proposed. So we want to learn theta. So log of g det theta minus trace of theta, this is a data fitting term. This is a data fitting term, and theta belongs to the space of Laplacian matrix, and the second term is the constraints on the eigenvalues. So we have put a transformation of t, because at some point we want to also enforce constraint on the adjacency matrix, and some point we want to force constraints on the Laplacian matrix. So theta is the Laplacian matrix, and then we apply certain transformation. So that is why we have made it little generic. So t is a simple transformation matrix. So this is the whole setting. We want to solve this. The first term is simple data fitting term, simple graph learning term under the likelihood. Instead of determinant of theta, we have used generalized determinant, because theta here is the positive semi-definite matrix. So determinant is not defined for positive semi-definite, while generalized determinant is defined, which is defined as the product of non-zero eigenvalues. So, if data is coming from a Gaussian distribution, then it is a kind of a approximate likelihood estimation under the IGMRF model. If data is arbitrarily distributed, then it is a kind of a sign constraint log determinant divergence minimization problem under the M matrix. So this is a general formulation. We have specialized this formulation for three different cases. So let's see the first case. So the first case is that we want to enforce eigenvalue constraints on the matrix theta. The theta is the Laplacian. So this is a problem we want to solve. We have decomposed theta. So here it is something like theta is a Laplacian matrix that we are solving for, and we see that the U diagonal of lambda U transpose is a ideal Laplacian matrix for which the eigenvalues of that will satisfy all the required properties, and we want to force theta to be as close as this thing. So with this problem setting, we can actually enforce this kind of graph structures like connected sparse graph. We want connectedness and its sparsity. This is also very important in many contexts because when we force sparsity, we may lose connectivity. So this is one structure. The k component graph structure can also just force the k number of eigenvalues of lambda to 0, and that will make the graph k component deregular. So deregular along from the general connectivity constraint, force the diagonal element of theta equal to t. So this is also linear constraint, can be well tackled. Other graph structures are also can be learned from this formulation. This is the first formulation. We will see the algorithm for this formulation later. In the second formulation, we want to force the constraints on the eigenvalues of adjacency matrix. So we know that the adjacency matrix is a linear transformation of Laplacian matrix. Just reverse the non-diagonal element with just put the negative of the non-diagonal element, and for the diagonal element put the 0. That is the adjacency matrix. So under this formulation, we can learn bipartite graph and connected bipartite graph, because we know that the bipartite graph have the eigenvalues of the bipartite graph. The eigenvalues of the adjacency matrix of a bipartite graph are symmetric along 0. So this is the second formulation. Next is the third formulation, where we put constraints on both the matrices. Theta, that is the Laplacian matrix, and A of theta, that is the adjacency matrix. With this formulation, we can enforce these complicated structures. Otherwise, these structures are so it's very difficult to impose these structures otherwise. And before our paper, there were no existing paper which can actually enforce the bipartite and regularity simultaneously, or k component constraint and the bipartite graph constraint simultaneously. So these are the three main formulations. Let's see how we can solve the problem, because all three problems are complicated. So far, if you have any any questions, please stop me. And okay, so fine, let's go to the next part. So this is the problem we want to solve. So here in this talk, we will discuss the first formulation. Other formulations are also related, but it will take time. So let's see how we can solve this problem. So we want to solve this problem. Okay, what are the challenges here? First challenge is that theta belongs to the Laplacian structural constraints. Next thing is that the non-convex coupling constraints on theta, u, and lambda, and non-convex orthogonality constraint on u. So these are the things which make this optimization problem challenging. So we need to have some kind of relaxation, and relaxation it should justify the relaxation. Let's see. So what we will do to solve this problem, we will first introduce a linear operator L, which will convert the Laplacian structural constraints into simple algebraic constraint, and then we will relax the eigenvalue decomposition into the objective function. So this is what we are doing. Let's see. So so theta is a matrix, something like that. So it is a symmetric matrix, first thing. Next thing is that the diagonal element is the linear combination of non-diagonal element. Okay, so theta ij, theta j is less than equal to 0, and theta dot 1 equal to 0. That is from this property. So it is a symmetric matrix which have degrees of freedom equal to p into p minus 1 by 2. That's fine. So one thing is that what we have done, we have mapped the so the upper diagonal element. So in this matrix, we should only be bothered about the upper diagonal element. See, in the last thing, the upper diagonal element are the only variables, and the others, the lower diagonal elements are the same as the upper diagonal element, and at the diagonal element we have the it is a linear combination of non-diagonal element. So what we have done, we have defined a transformation L, which will take a vector, weight vector. So suppose this is W1, W2, W3, W4, W5, W6. So which will take a weight vector and we will map to the Laplacian matrix. So this is a Laplacian matrix corresponding to this weight vector. So for any size of matrix n, the transformation is fixed. So we can map the matrix variable to a vector, and instead of forcing these many constraints by the construction of Laplacian operator, we can just focus on the weight vector. And because the Laplacian operator is fixed for all kind of graph. So first we will map the matrix variable to a vector variable with that will avoid this complicated constraint. Now we only want to force that W should be positive. So this is what we have done. Let's say. So this was the original problem. We have mapped theta to LW, where L is fixed, W is the vector variable, and we want, so earlier we had to force theta to belongs to S of theta, which has a lot of constraints. Now we only want to force that W should be all non-zero, non-negative. And we have relaxed this constraint theta u diagonal of lambda u transpose as a penalty term. Okay, so this penalty term might sound little like vague, in a sense like it is a relaxation, but we can devise a mechanism, the algorithm which can solve this problem by increasing beta every time. So by that way also we can prove that we are solving the exact problem. But that is not the concern, but this is the relaxation now. So now what we have achieved with this relaxation, let's see. So earlier the complexity was that the theta, the variables were coupled, like theta, lambda, and u were the variable, and they were coupled. Okay, so we could not apply any popular method like block coordinate and all, because they require the variables should be non-coupled. But with this relaxation, what we have achieved, we have three variables like w, lambda, and u, and all those variables are uncoupled. So what we can do, we can devise any kind of alternating optimization method, which will solve one variable at a time, fixing other variables. So we have first variable, that is w, which requires the positivity constraint. We have second variable, that is the eigenvalues, which require this constraint. So this is also a convex constraint, and we require the orthogonality constraint, that is fine, that we can handle. So for this particular problem, we develop a block majorization minimization type method, which update each block sequentially while keeping the other blocks fixed. So by fixing other variables, just solving for W will boil down to this particular problem. But this problem again, of course, this is a convex quadratic problem, but it will again involve a loop inside a loop. So to avoid that, what we have done, we have majorized this, and by majorizing, we can just solve it via simple gradient descent type of algorithm. So we have majorized this convex optimization problem, and then solving this is just requires a one update. So WT will just depend on the gradient. Next thing is for fixing W and lambda, we will get this kind of a problem. So this problem is so this problem is also known as a optimization problem on the Stephen manifold, and the solution for this particular problem is well known. It is just the eigenvectors of the LW matrix, and that solution will satisfy the KKT optimality condition for this subproblem. Let's see the next subproblem. So this subproblem is actually very interesting in a lot of sense. First thing is the log date regularized, and it is kind of a least square, but apart from it, additionally, it requires this kind of a monotone constraint. Like we want to solve a regularized least square problem, but at the same time, we want to preserve the monotonicity of this. So there is a separate branch that is called a monotonic or isotone optimization. So actually the isotonicity imposes a problem. So this is a convex problem. We could use CVX solver and all, but that will incur a lot of complexity in terms of time. It will incur too much time. So we have developed a solution which requires exactly p minus k number of iterations and satisfies the KKT optimality condition. So we have three variables and three simple update rules. We can combine the algorithm in this form, given the sample covariance matrix and the spectral constraint, which will depend on k, C1 and C2. C1 is the lower bound of the eigenvalue, C2 is the higher bound, and beta is the how much penalty you want to put on the equality constraint. And so you update W, you update U, you update lambda. and do till you converge, and that will lend you a graph, structured graph. Nice. So what is the worst case complexity? The worst case complexity of this algorithm is OPQ, because it involves eigenvalue decomposition in one stage, other stages are linear. So that was the worst case complexity. And interestingly, all the existing graph learning algorithms like GLASSO, CGL, and GGL, they do not enforce. They are not able to enforce any structure. They impose same. They require same computational complexity. Okay, so what is the theorem here? So we have something like the limit point of that algorithm, W star, U star, and lambda star, generated by this algorithm, converges to the set of KKT points of the optimization problem. So this is the guarantee that we can ensure for this algorithm. Let's see what we have done. So there are a few experiments here that we have performed with this graph. So in all the cases, like this is a true graph, and based on this true graph, we have generated data. We have applied existing graph, with like the state of the art, and this is the proposed state of the art. With that, we have a performance of a many-fold improvement with the proposed method. Let me. So these are the results that like validate that we have performed there. So before coming here, I just want to discuss some exchange. These all are the uh, demonstration that okay, our algorithms are working well. This is we have done for the cancer data set. We have clustering. So we have used the existing GLASSO method, GGL method, to learn a graph directly from the data. And at the same time, we want to cluster, but these are the existing approaches where they fail to uh, put clustering. So they fail to identify that the clusters are there. So this is the graph that we have learned, and we have compared that with the existing state-of-the-art clustering algorithm. So we have performed well. So now what we want to discuss certain, these are my collaborators. This is it work done during my postdoc, and uh, I now next want to discuss some of the extensions and what are the current problems which one can take up, and what is the overall grand scheme of the method, like where this whole thing is positioned. So let's see. So far, if you have understood things, the method, you must have realized that what we are actually doing in a broad sense, that given data or initial graph matrix. So we had data X. We have computed sample covariance matrix. So sample covariance matrix is a kind of a graph matrix, but we can say as a noisy graph matrix. So given data or the noisy graph matrix, we have approximated it to theta, and in the hindsight what we have done, we have four certain constraints, and the constraints are actually focusing something on the spectral properties. So we can say that we have done simply a spectrally enriched approximation. Okay, so that is the thing that we have done. So this thing has a wide consequence in a lot of areas, and now we will see that where this could be used and where the research that we have discussed now could be used to. So first thing is the complex network. Let's see. So complex networks have been using the Laplacian spectral properties for a long time. In fact, there are many Nature paper and the Physical Review and many papers which actually talks about the properties of Laplacian matrix that can be used to like improve the complex network application. So Laplacian spectra is a diagnostic tool of structure and dynamics. So there are many problems which can directly be solved, existing problems, or improved by using this method. But there is a new problem which can be directly solved. So there was a problem in complex network. There is a new problem in the complex network which requires that we want to approximate that complex network, and in that the network is something like it is a kind of a fixed infrastructure network. So given fixed infrastructure network, we want to approximate to another fixed infrastructure network, but with certain stability properties, and that is proposed to be solved under the realm of the spectral property. So there, in that line also, the spectral approximation of a graph matrix are useful, and this is an ongoing research. Next thing is the biological network. So in biological network in 2018, Nature Communications. So what in biological network people do, given data, okay, they obtain a noisy matrix and they refine that graph. They define that noisy matrix. So they call it as a network enhancement. the network enhancement as a general method to denoise biological networks. It appeared in Nature Communication 2018. So what they have concluded from their research is that to do a network enhancement, what you need to do, you need to approximate the given network to another network such that the eigen gap or the spectral gap between for that network increases. And a spectral gap is the distance between the smallest eigenvalue and the largest eigenvalue. So the whole thing is simply saying what? Just solve an optimization problem such that you do a spectral approximation, spectrally enriched approximation, such that the obtained matrix, obtained graph matrix has large eigengap. This is also an ongoing research. This from 2018. There are a lot of research coming up, and there are many things to be done. Next thing is graph signal processing. So graph signal processing is what? So in that case, whatever we have done with the signal processing tools like Fourier transform and all, everything is currently being mapped to a graph domain. So earlier we had Fourier transform, uh, which we all know. So there is a graph Fourier transform. So there, the eigenvectors of the graph play the role of Fourier transform. So people have used it extensively, but they have not used something. So they have not forced any additional properties on the full transform and all. So they have used a naive transform property. So there is a lot of scope of improving the existing algorithms by using uh, either graph or the graph or their eigenvectors with certain additional properties. So this is also ongoing. A recent paper um, by Vaidyanathan himself and his student Teke. In 2017, they have extended the properties on the eigenvectors to identify the uncertainty principle over graph. So this is also a nice area. Not much has been done so far. Fourth problem is something on the machine learning. So machine learning given a graph, okay, so the problem is pretty simple here. So we have a large scale dense network of a dense network, which can be represented in terms of a graph, the nodes, the edges, and the graph matrix. Example, social network. So the problem here is we can invest a lot on initial building of a graph. We can like put a lot of resources, but we want to use, while using that graph, we need to relax the resource constraints. We do not have much resource later, so they need to build a very sparse graph. So they need to build sparse graphs so that they have very less number of edges. So what the problem is, given initial graph matrix, they want to approximate that graph matrix to another graph matrix, but that approximation should not be something blind. Like you cannot just force the Frobenius norm to be very close. That will destroy a lot of thing that you want to actually capture on. So they want to do sparsification, but at the same time, they want to ensure certain property. So what they have realized that the property that could be best ensured in both the matrix could be done by the spectral property. So instead of forcing m and theta to close, they force the eigenvalues of those matrix m and theta to be close. So they call this thing as a spectral sparsification. So the first paper, the first like the demonstration came by the Daniel Spillman, a mathematician. They have actually established that a spectral sparsification is actually possible, and it can be done via using the eigenvalues of Laplacian matrix. In 2019, a paper came in NeurIPS which have used this property to perform spectral sparsification. So in the same sense, this is something a graph approximation such that the eigenvalues of two graph matrices are very close. So this is also not open problem; it's an active problem. If someone is interested, they can go and work on. Okay, so this sums up. Thank you. So these are the things that we have done. We have a few publications out of it, and we are working on few extensions. There are a lot of things that can be done. What we are focusing on extending the method for large scale graph learning normalized Laplacian graph, and deciding for a given data set what kind of graph structures are actually useful, or in fact we have seen that the model identification in a general setting. We want to extend the model identification for the graph setting. So this is what we are working on. So by this I conclude my presentation. If you have any Any doubt, any questions, please ask. Thank you.
Questions from the audience? So Sandeep, you talked about learning a graph which is close to another graph,
Yeah.
right? Towards
Yeah.
the end.
Yeah.
But you said Frobenius norm cannot be used, but we want spectral properties to be similar.
Yeah.
How did you say we could enforce that?
So we can use KL divergence also.
KL divergence between the graphs.
Two graphs, yeah.
Okay, but why KL divergence? Why not Frobenius norm?
That can also be used, but what I wanted to say is that just by forcing Frobenius norm and forcing those entries to be closed, we might lose something. So we also need additional constraints. So if you want to rephrase it, that addition to a data fitting term, we want another property which should be satisfied, and that we will get from the spectral proximity.
Spectral proximity means what actually? That's what I was asking.
So it is something. So in the base paper, what they have given, that suppose you have a graph, initial graph, okay, and you have a you computed the Laplace, the eigenvalues of that Laplacian matrix. Okay, so that graph will have a certain weights. Okay, so if you learn another graph just by scaling down the eigenvalue, so you learn another graph which has scaled eigenvalues. Suppose you scale the eigenvalues by 1/10, then the graph properties will be reduced by 1/10. So there will be a kind of 1/10 fold of sparsity, or weights will also be decreased by 1/10. So this kind of relation they have established in the base paper by Daniel Spillman. So that is what they have shown, that the properties like connectivity, strength, or the kind of node property, hub property, they will be maintained.
Okay.
That is something they want. So the network attributes will be maintained if we will have the spectral like the spectral similarity. You can say spectral similarity, not proximity.
Okay. And yeah, so that's I understood that. And what about that parameter learning over graphs, like learning the parameters of a graph, like from samples of a graph? Did you talk about that also? I didn't see it. Maybe I missed.
No, I didn't understand it.
So let's say that you want to learn the parameters of a graph. So you are given a sample of a graph.
Okay.
Rather than the graph, you are given a sample.
Okay.
And from some of the samples of the graph, you want to learn the parameters.
So sample like the data is generated or some parts of a graph?
No, data is generated. Like one sample of a graph is like a data point.
Data point. Okay. Such for this problem we have not.
This problem we have not. So it is like what I was saying was that let's say that friends network.
Okay.
A friends network can be of different types. So you take one friends network, that is one sample.
Okay.
And another friends network is another sample.
Okay.
And let's say you want to learn the connectivity information about friends network. How are friends networks connected?
Okay, so this is a kind of an like closeness between two different graphs. Right? One graph, one friend network is one graph, and another friend network is another graph. We want to see the closeness. No, something of this
closeness, like 2 or 3 or 4 different friends networks can be treated as 4 data points, right? And the data set is the set of all friends networks possible.
Okay.
So you take several friends networks out of that, and then you, let's say, obtain that friends network have a higher degree or heavy tail distribution, let's say.
Okay. No, we have not covered.
So that's your, okay. That is another, I think, an interesting direction.
Yeah, this is interesting.
Like a parameter estimation, but for a graph instead of data. When we are doing machine learning, we are doing parameter estimation of the data set.
Yeah.
Sort of, right?
Yeah.
When we say we want to do machine learning, we want to do a classification. And we say that this is the classification boundary, those are the parameters, we are estimating those parameters, given sample data points.
Yes.
Similarly, given graph data points, we can do some kind of estimation over the whole graph data set.
Yeah, it is interesting. So for all the samples corresponding to the same set of nodes, right? Same set of
nodes. Yeah.
Oh, I see. So it's a kind of also aggregation of information from different friend networks. Right?
Yeah.
So one graph network can be obtained with certain attributes like what kind of food they like, and another graph could be obtained from what kind of political
various multiple things are there from which you could generate friends network. So
I see. Yeah, the aggregation. Yeah, this is interesting. I have not looked into this, but yeah.
Okay. So that problem was in my mind. I was thinking maybe either you covered it or missed it, or maybe you have not covered it. Okay.
No, I have not covered, but it is a nice lead. I will look into it, and maybe we can discuss it later.
Sure. So any other questions from the audience? Okay, if there are no questions, thanks Sandeep for the talk. Very interesting tutorial.
Thanks.
Heard a lot of things, and in 1 hour also. Good. So thanks.
Thank you, sir. Thanks a lot for the invitation, and I hope to join you again with some other topics soon.
Yeah, sure. So I'll just conclude. So this video will be available, right, on the YouTube later. Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks a lot for coming. Thanks a lot.